Hey everyone, it's Colin. How's it going? There are lots of handheld consoles you can build yourself, but they often have an educational focus. This time, let's check out one that puts gaming first. This is the Odroid Go from the South Korean company Hardkernel. It comes in kit form and includes all the parts you'll need except for a microSD card. It features a 2.4-inch LCD screen with a resolution of 320 by 240 pixels and a 1200 mAh lithium polymer battery. It all fits into a housing with a familiar Game Boy size and shape, and it's based around the ESP32 system on a chip. Assembling the console is very straightforward and beginner-friendly. There's no soldering involved, and the only tool needed is a small Phillips screwdriver. If you've ever replaced the shell or buttons on a Game Boy, you can put this kit together. It's just a matter of dropping all the parts into place, hooking up the screen, then the battery and speaker, and finally buttoning up the case. Overall, the build quality is quite good. The buttons and D-pad are surprisingly nice, with just the right amount of tactile response. Slightly clicky, but not too much. The case plastics are well made and feel really solid. It looks a lot like a Game Boy Pocket, but it's significantly thinner due to that LiPo battery, which lasts for about 10 hours and recharges through micro USB. Once you've copied the firmware to a micro SD card, the user interface is simple but straightforward. Odroid Go can play games for the NES, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, Game Gear, and ColecoVision platforms. As for emulation quality, it's hit and miss. NES games, for example, seem to play back at normal speed, but they're stretched horizontally to fill the screen, and a small amount of the top and sides gets cut off. The image, however, is still quite sharp, and text remains readable, albeit rather small. Game Boy and Game Boy Color games look a bit soft due to interpolation, since the Odroid Go's screen resolution doesn't match that of the original consoles. And the games seem to run a bit slower than normal. This clip started with both consoles in perfect sync, but now the original DMG on the left is a few frames ahead. I don't have a Master System or ColecoVision to compare this handheld against, but perhaps the games that get the biggest benefit are those for the Game Gear. Given that console's horrible screen, poor battery life, and unreliable hardware, the Odroid Go gives a vibrant, clear, smooth gameplay experience. And that's the case with all of the consoles it emulates, really. No, it doesn't offer perfect emulation, but on all the games I tried, there wasn't really any input lag, and they were overall very playable. With all that said, this console does have its limitations. The processor in the ESP32 runs at up to 240 MHz with 4 MB of RAM and 16 MB of flash. Enough to emulate 8-bit consoles, but not 16-bit systems like the Super NES or Genesis. And while the built-in speaker does a decent job with game audio, there's no headphone jack and only 4 volume levels. There's also 4 levels to the brightness of the backlight, controlled by holding down Start and pressing the D-pad up or down, but this can cause problems because those button presses are also passed through to any game you're playing. Finally, the chipset has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth radios, but there's no provision to use them in the emulator firmware, like doing wireless multiplayer or even just pairing Bluetooth headphones. Despite the fact that the box has the Android mascot printed on it, the Odroid Go actually uses custom firmware. The game emulation software is just one of the options for the console, and you can write your own programs using the Arduino software tools. And to encourage tinkering, a 10-pin expansion header is accessible through the top of the case. So even with its hardware and software limitations, I still think the about $40 US that I spent on it represents a good deal. If you want perfect emulation, of course, you'll need to look elsewhere. But to me, gaming on this console was just fun. So if you want a casual, convenient way to play popular 8-bit games, it's hard to argue with the value the Odroid Go offers. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram @thisdoesnotcomp, and as always, thanks for watching.